Today, let's talk about whether the renminbi has the potential to become a world currency or to become an internationally dominant currency like the US dollar. Before answering this question, let's first trace how the dollar gradually became the hegemonic currency of the world. In fact, the origin of the term dollar has nothing to do with the United States. It originated from the thaler. Thaler was a type of silver coin that first appeared in a silver-rich valley in Bohemia, now the Czech Republic, in the 16th century, which the locals referred to simply as thaler. So, the word became synonymous with silver coins and spread and evolved in various European countries, such as Spain and Portugal. Later on, Spanish colonizers in Mexico extensively developed silver mines to mint silver coins and, out of habit, named them dollars, which led to the spread of the term dollar in North America. After the U.S. independence in 1776, the dollar officially became the legal currency of the United States in 1792. Subsequently, the dollar's rise to global prominence was partly due to operations and partly due to good luck. After winning World War II, while European countries and Japan were busy with post-war reconstruction, the United States took on the role of a long-term maintainer of world peace. During the years of World War II, the United States accumulated war wealth, mostly in gold. 3/4 of the world's gold reserves were in the United States at that time, and since most of the gold reserves were in the United States, and the world's factories were also mainly in the US at that time, everyone had to rely on the US for trade, so it made sense to use the dollar. To reassure other countries, the United States also made assurances that the dollar could be linked to gold. This was the Bretton Woods system, proposed by US Treasury officials in 1942. In reality, it was well understood that the dollar being tied to gold was just a facade. As long as the whole world was tied to the dollar, once they got on the boat, they had to listen to the US. If they decided to unpeg from gold, they would. Why did other countries agree to this hegemonic arrangement? Because they had no choice. With US troops stationed in Europe, their lives were in the hands of the US. What could they do if they didn't agree? Moreover, the US didn't even need to get directly involved. At that time, the Soviet Union was eyeing Eastern Europe, so as long as the US said, "You deal with the Soviet Union yourselves, I'm out," what could European countries do? Under the eaves, they had to bow their heads. Of course, the US didn't only rely on coercion. It also offered incentives. Without the Marshall Plan launched by the US in 1947, Europe would have had to wait much longer to rebuild from the ruins, following the Big Brother mint getting benefits and not following mint getting beaten. Was there really a choice? Consequently, Europe caved in, and naturally, Britain lost confidence, becoming a lackey of the US. The dollar naturally became the universal currency of international trade and a symbol of stability. Later on, with the acceleration of globalization, the influence of the dollar continued to rise. Although the Cold War and its aftermath provided opportunities to challenge the dollar's status, the collapse of the Soviet Union created a vacuum, and the dollar once again took advantage of the situation. Although the US economy accounted for less than a quarter of the world economy, the dollar's share in transactions using foreign currencies as a medium of exchange reached 87%. Today, the face of George Washington imprinted on the $1 bill may be the most replicated face in the world. Every day, 17 million $1 bills are printed. Currently, there are 11.7 billion $1 bills in circulation worldwide, found in people's wallets, ATMs, cash registers in stores, or hidden under mattresses. Not to mention the many electronic forms of dollars held by banks, with more than half of US dollar bills circulating outside the US. To this day, the US remains the world's hegemon, and the dollar remains as popular worldwide as ever. The dollar is a safe haven, and every geopolitical storm seems to strengthen this belief. All this is because the dollar is one of the most trusted stores of value worldwide. In places of extreme political instability, rescue workers find that pulling out a stack of dollars is the fastest way to purchase various equipment and address humanitarian crises. In 2001 to 2002, when prices soared in Argentina and the peso rapidly depreciated, the wealthy found that the safest way to protect their lifelong savings was to exchange all their money for dollars and hide it under the mattress. Similarly, in other places, the dollar is also the favorite of corrupt businessmen and politicians because it's the most convenient currency to spend. Whether it's hoarding assets in Japanese banks or bartering on the streets of Panama, Even in Russia in the 1990s, many people thought the dollar was more reliable than the ruble. Under the combined influence of history, trade, politics, and an unshakable financial system, the dollar remains the most important currency in the global economy, regardless of where you are in the world. Globally, the dollar represents the power and interests of the United States. After discussing the past and present of the dollar, let's take a look at whether the renminbi, RMB, can also step-by-step become the dominant world currency. Although China has experienced rapid growth in the short term, there is still a long way to go for it to stand at the center of the international stage as a superpower. Does it have the strength and hope for the future? To answer this question, let's first look at the past and present of the renminbi. The renminbi is issued by the People's Bank of China and officially began circulation on December 1, 1948. Although China was very backward at that time, in the following decades, China underwent dramatic changes. In the mid-20th century, China achieved large-scale industrialization, especially since the 1980s. Under the spring breeze of reform and opening up, enterprises could set their own wage standards and profits belonged to themselves, and most importantly, Chinese products could be sold overseas. This change led China onto the path of becoming the world's factory. Chinese workers moved from rural areas to factories, and their income skyrocketed. In the game of globalization, China was still a newcomer at the time. Its success on the world stage was mainly achieved by accumulating wealth through exporting low-cost goods. There were two reasons for this low-cost advantage. One was that China could indeed assemble industrial consumer goods at very low production costs, and the other was related to the exchange rate of the Chinese currency. Many countries in the world adopt a floating exchange rate system, allowing the exchange rate to float freely. Under the floating exchange rate system, the currency can be freely traded on foreign exchange markets worldwide, and the supply and demand situation in the market automatically determines the exchange rate of the currency. However, China does not adopt a floating exchange rate system. The People's Bank of China manages the exchange rate of the renminbi through foreign trade policies and other measures. Over the years, China has tried to improve its export capabilities in every possible way. So, the exchange rate of the renminbi has always been lower than its real value. On the surface, a strong exchange rate seems better. A strong exchange rate of the domestic currency symbolizes power and influence that illuminates every corner of the world and represents confidence in the domestic economy. So why doesn't the renminbi compete with the dollar for the throne of a strong currency? With the prosperity of China's export industry, if the exchange rate of the renminbi rises, Chinese products exported to other countries will become relatively expensive. Suppose the price of a Chinese-made bicycle in renminbi remains unchanged, but the exchange rate of renminbi rises, the price of this bicycle in dollars will immediately rise. Therefore, for American consumers, the attractiveness of goods manufactured in China also decreases, and they may choose bicycles produced in Japan or South Korea instead. This would result in significant economic losses for Chinese manufacturing enterprises. China became one of the most economically prosperous countries in the world by exporting goods to other countries in large quantities. The low exchange rate of the renminbi can maintain an irresistible price advantage for goods exported by China to other countries' consumers. Furthermore, China holds a large amount of US dollar reserves, which continue to grow. By the end of 2023, the total amount had reached $3.238 trillion, ranking first in the world for 18 consecutive years. Therefore, by not competing with the strong dollar but maintaining a high exchange rate against the dollar, China can maintain the stability or even appreciation of its foreign exchange wealth. The low exchange rate of the renminbi is one of the reasons for maintaining China's export advantage and also makes China the world's largest trade surplus country. In 2023, China's trade surplus was $608 billion. Here's a brief explanation of trade surplus. It refers to the difference between a country's imports and exports. When the total value of exports exceeds the total value of imports, it belongs to a trade surplus country. Otherwise, it is a trade deficit country. In 2023, the world's largest trade deficit country was the United States, reaching $773.4 billion. So you see, the United States is the world's biggest spender, while China is the world's biggest earner. For a long time, the renminbi has been difficult to circulate widely worldwide because if it did, the renminbi that China spent in other countries, such as Russia, would soon be earned back by China. It would be taken back before it even got warm, making it difficult for the renminbi to circulate like a message in a bottle across continents. So currently, renminbi internationalization is very difficult. In addition to the largest factor of trade surplus, the renminbi is not yet widely trusted internationally. After all, the essence of currency, since its inception, is trust. The renminbi within China is more like virtual coins in a game. You can freely purchase items in the game store, but to buy goods in the real world, you need to exchange them for foreign exchange first, and there are quotas for currency exchange. So in such a market where currency exchange is not freely available, foreign investors naturally lack a sense of security and trust. Who knows if they can leave after entering? In addition, the exchange rate is not determined by the market but can be greatly changed by the central bank with just a few policies. If other countries adopt the renminbi, there would be a huge exchange rate risk. Adding the previous reason of trade surplus, other countries are almost impossible to reserve large amounts of renminbi, which naturally makes the renminbi lack the foundation to become a world currency. So, to sum up, due to exchange rate policies and trade surpluses, the renminbi is currently unlikely to compete with the dollar to become a world currency. But at the same time, China is unwilling and unnecessary to let the renminbi become the world dominant currency. The current status of trade surplus is good. To become a world currency, it must become a trade deficit country, importing more than exporting. After the offsetting of imports and exports, other countries will have some renminbi left, because without a surplus, it is impossible to circulate. Trade deficits mean industrial relocation, followed by hollowing out of industries, which is not conducive to technological development. This is the dilemma the US currently faces, with many towns losing population due to factories being replaced by areas like China, gradually becoming ghost towns. This is what is called the dollar curse. The US would like to change this. Trump has always advocated abandoning the global dominance of the dollar and bringing industries back to the country. But human nature is lazy, and it's hard to go from luxury to thrift. After making easy money, almost everyone loses the ability to earn hard money. So the progress of industrial reshoring in the US has not been smooth. China actually has the ability to globalize the renminbi to some extent because China has a stable government, a huge consumer market, and excellent infrastructure. As long as China is willing to buy goods from other countries will naturally be very happy. This will naturally allow the renminbi to flow out of China and gradually become a world currency. But this also means that many industries in China will move out, domestic jobs will decrease, and some industries may face a backward technological level, which is a situation that the country is not willing to bear temporarily under the current not very optimistic economic environment. In fact, in terms of transaction volume, the renminbi is already one of the top 5 currencies in the world. But if it wants to become the dominant currency in global trade, the renminbi has not replaced the dollar's foundation, nor does it have the determination to replace the dollar. This foundation refers to economic, military, and ideological foundations, while determination refers to the determination to replace the dollar and become the world city management everywhere. Well, that's all for this issue. Thank you all for watching. Follow me to learn more about the world economy.